This is the morning brief from the Economic Times.
Roll sound.
Rolling.
Take two.
Action!
There's a new bill in town, which, if passed by the government, will change how we watch movies and consume content in India.
साहब 100 चूहे का 10 रुपए के हिसाब से तो 1000 रुपया हुआ ना, लेकिन ये तो 900 रुपए है।
अपनी माँ से जाके कहना कि इलेक्शन के पहले के 2 महीने छोड़ के देवकी आज भी कभी झूठ नहीं बोलता है।
Be it Kissa Kursi Ka or Bandit Queen in the 90s, or Black Friday, Padmavat or Tandav recently, we audiences are no strangers to censorship that follow the guidelines laid down by the Cinematograph Act of 1952. Now this 70-year-old British-era law is under the spotlight again, with the government proposing a new amendment which will authorize the centre to seek recertification of both old and new films and give them powers over and above the existing censorship body, that is the CBFC. Does this signal the end of creative freedom for artists? Are we going to go back to a time where flowers appeared magically every time a couple kissed on screen? And more importantly, how will this affect us as consumers of content in theatres and on OTT platforms like Netflix or Prime or Hotstar? I speak to a lawyer, a legendary filmmaker, and an independent young filmmaker to find out if this is going to take away the shine from the silver screen. I am Bhavya Dilip Kumar, and you're listening to The Morning Brief.
All the things that I want to watch will be under Narcos will be under threat. The Queen of the South will be under threat. Pretty much, I think, in a more India-centric context, Sacred Games would have never come out.
जाके देख रिकॉर्ड में कौन है, इंसान है कि भगवान.
Tandav, I mean, if I can go across from Netflix to Amazon, I think Tandav would have never come out.
Kaushik is a partner at law firm Bharucha and Partners, advising international and domestic clients on all matters pertaining to media licensing and distribution. Kaushik told me that the new bill proposes to bring in a lot of changes. The universal or adult category, which is UA category, assigned for films, will now see more subdivisions like 7+, 13+, and 16+ age groups. The government now gets a revisionary power and it can go above the Central Board of Film Certification and ask for a recertification if it finds the content very offensive. The bill has also introduced a clause that penalizes piracy. Kaushik, what are the implications of this proposed bill, which makes the government a super censor?
Process is simple. Once you go into certification, there is a committee that is created within the CBFC, where there's an examining officer, etc., who watch the film and propose changes or cuts or certification as required. Okay. Now, what is not clear in this act yet? Now, when it comes to the revisional powers, which is of the central government, now how that revisional power will be exercised is yet to be codified and seen. Right now, the amendment says that the centre has the power.
Okay.
Now, will that mean that after? So nowhere in the act, nowhere in the proposed amendments does it say that you have to take it to the central government after certification. No, it just says that the central government, if it feels, will have the right to seek recertification or whatever else. So, which is where the real fear is coming in, that is this now a draconian system where anything from anywhere can be picked up again.
Okay.
But then, as I said, we'll have to test this in actual operation.
That's interesting. So this is why I want to ask you now, what role will the CBFC play?
Well, the CBFC will still remain the CBFC.
Okay.
And it'll play the role of the censor board. But the fact is that it seems that the CBFC now has a separate, a new boss on top, which typically tends to undermine the autonomy of the board, like the board as it stands right now. The way the CBFC was figured earlier was that, as far as films and cinematograph acts, films are concerned, that will be the last port of um certification, and beyond that, the government will not intervene.
Okay.
Right here now, the CBFC still remains, but the actual power of the CBFC seems to be subject to overall supervision by the government in a very granular manner.
Kaushik, why is the government seeking to update an age old law now? What message does it want to send?
If you see that, I mean, the developments over the last, I mean, 1.5 1 year odd, there has been a there has been an effort in the direction of trying to exercise greater control slash uh, regulate content and the content ecosystem overall, right? Whether it is films, so I mean, whether it's OTT, whether it's TV, whether it's television content, whether it's television tariff. uh, so this actually was the last bastion which was not touched, though the initial part of the of touching this bastion had happened when they took away FCAT, which is the Film Certification Appellate Tribunal. But obviously, the counterpoint is that the certification that they're talking about, that is breaking UA into 7 plus, 13 plus, etc.,
Yeah.
is in line with what they have proposed and what is being done in the OTT space also.
Kaushik, but does this new bill also impact content that is available on OTT platforms?
OTT has already been regulated in the last 3 months through the IT rules, because in that sense, a streaming service is a streaming service which is under the IT rules. Similar, and also changes have been made to the Cable Television Networks Regulation Act. The point is, among OTTs, there are 3 4 kinds of OTTs. One is a pure play OTT like a Netflix, which is only an over the top online curated content streaming service, right? That's one. The second is an OTT which comes from an existing legacy media channel, like, for example, uh, you know, for the want of another thing, any Times Now playing on MX Player as Times Now itself. The third is something like Hotstar, which has both, which has sports also, this also, and that also. Now, what has happened is that the OTT regulation, which came out 3 months back, has already asked all OTT players to stick to the guidelines mentioned in the CTN Act, which was Program Code and Advertisement Code. Program Code typically says the same things which are today being put in the Cinematograph Act. So when I said that they are trying to make it uniform, I did not mean that it's being part of the same law, but the applicability of the principles is being made uniform. The way how it will change the OTT viewers' experience, and not this law, but how it has already changed the OTT's viewing experience, is this: that anything that is not certified for broadcast in India will now not be broadcast in India as per the law.
How binding and extensive will these new powers be? Can the government actually go ahead and stop the release of a film?
So there are two parts to this. First of all, the Supreme Court saying that the government currently doesn't have the power to do it doesn't stop the government from making a new law.
Yeah.
So, should the government make a new law, then that law is obviously subject to judicial scrutiny. I mean, if somebody challenges it, it will be in front of the court, and the court can strike it down. The court can also suo moto, take cognizance, and strike it down. But the fact is, this is not a law yet, so we can't say whether it will stand the test of judicial scrutiny or not. Okay. So those powers of stopping a particular kind of content because it imperils public order is already there.
Okay.
So, I mean, you did not need a new Cinematograph Act. This, in that sense, codifies exactly what the government can do, while the government is saying that it has the right to ask for recertification or whatever. But the fact is that when you ask for recertification, you have virtually stopped the film from releasing at that point. And stopping a film from release has a variety of ways you can do it. I mean, courts have done that in the past. I mean, one of the clear examples of something like this was Black Friday, right? It released years after the trial ended.
The film fraternity is clearly not happy with the new bill.
Saying anything free is under attack, and we are all feeling that. So this move makes you doubt the intention of the government.
It's to muzzle the voice or muffle the voice, if you want to make it even softer. But I think that this would be an attempt. It's I'm not talking about the left or the right. Any government who tries to do it, voices like mine will come up.
That's filmmaker Vishal Bharadwaj and actor-producer Kamal Hassan. However, standing up to the powers that be and resisting the forces of censorship is nothing new for filmmakers and artists. Like Adhur Gopalakrishnan, an award-winning director from the Malayalam industry, who's the recipient of the Padma Shri and Padma Vibhushan. So could you tell us how censorship in India has changed over the ages? Is it more stringent now? Are we as a society becoming more intolerant now than before?
From the time when I started making films, I had to do censoring because it has been there and it is a legacy of the British. It's an empirical introduction of controlling expression of people's free opinion, and they did it very successfully, of course. And those were the times when they kept a watch on the kind of films being made, and where anything about anti-British was talked about, or anything about freedom was discussed, etc. So they had to censor those things. That's what they were very keen on. So I really don't understand, as a citizen of this country, I really do not understand why the governments after governments cling on to this censoring. This is an impingement on the on our constitution. Now, for ever since that time, the government has been holding its the binding on the filmmakers stronger and stronger with the different stipulations put forward. Right now, there is this legislation coming. I don't understand why. Because are we already into a dictatorship or what? Because first thing they did, without any knowledge or information given to the public or the filmmakers or professionals, they withdrew. They cancelled a body called Appellate Authority.
Yeah.
The poor producer has this one refuge. After he is refused this or that or asked to cut, if he believes in what he does, he had an authority to go to, so that he could get redressal of his complaints. So that body is quietly, disbanded. How? Why? What is the problem? Over and above that, they cancelled this Appellate Authority, and now they want to bring in a new body where they will do recensoring. Mm-hmm. We are not under a military rule.
So can you also share with us some anecdotes to bring this to life for our listeners?
I can tell you from knowledge, from what I read and what I heard about. Sexy Durga, it was the title. So it was again objected to, and he was asked to title it differently, remove sexy. And it was titled Yes Durga. What difference does it make?
Yeah.
Yes Durga, that is the initial of Durga.
Yeah.
It is like a joke, all this.
Now to the latest on the controversy surrounding film S. Durga. The film's name was changed from Sexy Durga to S. Durga after outrage and allegations that it hurts religious sentiments of Hindus. The movie was also dropped from the International Film Festival of India.
And then nobody found anything objectionable. When they saw the film, there was nothing objectionable in it. Why are you afraid of these things? Why are you afraid? So you see, people have no knowledge about things. People have no idea about anything that is artistic or informational or objective. They fraud in and kind of restrictions they bring in. It is if others hear about it, they will laugh at it. We are already becoming the laughing stock of the world.
Yeah.
In terms of the censoring and all that. In a democratic country, censoring is a dirty word. I personally want to be very proud of my country, but then how can I feel proud? Feel proud when this is happening around me. It is happening to me. What kind of pride will I have?
The whole idea of having a board of certification is supposed to be under the constitution of the country. Therefore, what matters is the constitution. If something that you're doing is unconstitutional, fine. You have to be made to pay for that. That's a different thing. But you cannot possibly deal with it like, any government in power just comes back and says, no, I wish to review this film on what reason?
That's Shyam Benegal, then chairman of Film and Television Institute of India. India's new laws have made us a laughing stock on the international stage, says Mr. Gopalakrishnan. But as recently as 2016, Shyam Benegal had made an attempt to modernize the Indian film certification process to reflect changing audience attitudes. Have his recommendations been taken into consideration now?
That committee was under, not Shyam Benegal committee. Shyam Benegal committee was appointed by this government.
Correct. In 2016.
And that they completely discarded it. Whatever he had recommended, they did not open, I am told, that they did not ever consider this report. It was just, set aside. So we do not know what was recommended, what was the government's feeling about it. We have no idea.
So is the new bill the supervillain of our narrative? I spoke to an independent filmmaker, Rushabh Nagraj, to get his perspective.
Censorship definitely is for the good because you're keeping a collective in mind when you're passing these laws. It's not like they're uncalculated decisions. Filmmakers have been given a warning or 2 or 3, and even after that, if they fail to pull themselves up, then I feel censorship is the way to go.
Okay. So do you basically support the bill?
I'm not completely in support of it. I still feel the government could meet us halfway, but I still feel cooperation needs to come from our part. Like when they've given us multiple reminders that you need to really not upset sentiments. You need to get your facts straight when you're presenting them because you're presenting it to millions of audience, with millions of viewers. So filmmakers have to meet governments halfway and they have to meet us halfway as well, and then things can progress. But as things stand right now, it's an ego battle and it's not going to take us anywhere.
While Rushabh supports the spirit of this new bill, he too has begun to feel the after effects of these new guidelines as he consumes his favorite shows and movies online.
So I recently rewatched Vikings.
This hero that comes into Valhalla does not lament his death. I shall not enter Odin's hall with fear.
And I was really disappointed that all of the gore was pulled out of there. I'm quite okay with the sex being pulled out because that really wasn't part of the story. It was just a catalyst to the story. But then you can't have a Viking raid without a bloodshed. That's something I just cannot accept.
Some sections of the film industry also welcome the anti-piracy provisions of the proposed bill, which levies a penalty of around rupees 3 lakhs and assures a jail term for offenders found taping content intended for public distribution. But what is alarming is that the government has also decided to do away with the only redressal platform for filmmakers, abolishing the Film Certification Appellate Tribunal in April. How does this change things for filmmakers, Kaushik?
They have a redressal mechanism. What they don't have is specialized tribunal for that, right? They can definitely go to the High Court. Now, FCAT essentially was a specialized mechanism to challenge a decision of the CBFC only, right? It was not it. I mean, if the government took a decision, FCAT could not handle that anyway. Please understand that there's a nuance between an autonomous body and the government itself, the state itself. The autonomous body is not the state itself, which is why a decision of that could go to a specialized tribunal, which would have a judicial member and a technical member, right? Which would mean one judge and one filmmaker or multiple. But all I can say is that there seems to be a wedge drawn through the middle, wherein there is confusion on what the last mile uh, last mile position will be, right? Will filmmakers in India be able to at all tell us the story that they really want to tell us, or will it consistently be subject to a super regulator in the state? That is something which is not clear, and it will as I said, that is something that can only be judged once this law has happened and it's in operation. Though there is a consultation paper that is out wherein they have sought public comments. I am told that a large number of people are giving comments or have already given comments. They were supposed to give in comments by the 2nd of July, and I hope that they have given the comments that they had to. And once the comments are collated, the government may have an open house or something like that, which would make things more crystallized in that sense.
While the film industry is still reeling from the impacts of the pandemic, this new bill may just be a double whammy, with the threat of over-regulation further complicating the process of making and releasing films. It is unclear what will happen if and when the government chooses to exercise its review powers. What will be seen as offensive? Will the CBFC become an authority in name only? The answer is coming soon to a screen near you. I am Bhavya Dilip Kumar, and you've been listening to The Morning Brief. This episode was edited and coordinated by Shashwat Mohanty. I hope you enjoyed listening to the episode. Do send in your feedback to themorningbrief@timesgroup.com and share the episode on your social media networks. The Morning Brief airs every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. All external sound clips used in this episode belong to their respective owners. Credits mentioned in the description box.